Well, hello there, and welcome to another tank review. I'm Corny Swiss, and today I'm looking at the M41 Walker Bulldog, a rank 4 6.0 battle rating American light tank. Now, as with all reviews, before I get started, all the various parts of this review are timestamped down below, so feel free to check that out if you don't want to watch the garage portion or you don't want to watch any part of the review. Just go ahead and click the part you do want to watch, and it'll take you right on your way. But if you want to hear the garage portions of this review, let's get started. So the M41 Walker Bulldog was designed to be a replacement for the M24 Chaffee. The Chaffee was considered a successful design because it filled its role as sort of a light tank, reconnaissance tank, but its main gun wasn't equipped to deal with well-armored opponents. So the M41 was conceived as sort of an answer. It's a light tank, good for reconnaissance, that has a 76mm gun, but also has very high armor penetration capabilities thanks to the long barrel and also the ammunition types. It's very agile, very well armed, but it's noisy, fuel hungry, and heavy enough that it's difficult to transport by air, which is one of the main requirements that the Army wanted for its new light tank. It saw limited service in Korea and was used in the Vietnam War, but it didn't really take off, and Korea was more so used as a way to test its deficiencies rather than its fighting capabilities. Other militaries have used this tank before. Americans gave some of these tanks to the Japanese Defense Force as a way to bolster them and their T-61 medium tanks, but it really wasn't tremendously successful in American use. But it is an interesting tank to drive. So let's look at the statistics. Alright, so it's a 6.0 battle rating, which means it will see Tiger 2s, and it'll see everything up to the King Tiger with the 105. In terms of Russian tanks, it'll see everything up to 7.0, so IS-2s and IS-3. If you play arcade, you'll see, well, you can be matched with up to T-32s, really. The main thing about this tank is the maneuverability. It's 23 tons, which is really light, has a 500 horsepower engine at 2,800 RPM, which is really good for a 23-ton tank. And it can do 72 kilometers per hour, and it will, in fact, do 72 kilometers per hour. It will get to that speed, and for the most part, it'll get there in a hurry. Maximum inclination, 35 degrees. Turret rotation speed, 36 degrees a second. That's really, really fast. The turret will spin really quickly. It's a very agile, has a lot of grunt in the engine, and it's very reactive with the turret. Vertical guidance, 10 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of elevation. Fairly standard for American tanks. They usually have about 10 degrees of gun depression, and 20 degrees of elevation is fine. It doesn't have a machine gun, so you don't have any defense really against air attack, but you know, it is a light tank, and it serves its purpose by zooming around the battlefield or taking flanking approaches or just finding the enemy. Now, the reason it's so light, which makes it so fast, is that it has paper for armor. It's paper mache all the way around. Like, you pull up the little armor model and you're like, oh my goodness, there's orange, there's red, this looks nice. Yeah. The red, 31.7 millimeters. Yeah, okay, 31.7 millimeters. Thanks to sloping, at best, about 50-something millimeters. Ouch. The bottom plate, the lower plate, yeah, 50-something millimeters. Upper plate, 25.4 millimeters thick, 45 millimeters effective thickness. Whoopee! 19 millimeters here, and you'll notice this tank has a really horrific shell trap. If you hit this thing in the bottom part of the turret, it'll just bounce into the crew compartment and kill everybody. It's not the best, and this is only 19 millimeters right here. But surely the sides of the turret, I mean, look at that sloping. You know, yeah, you're right, it is much thicker, but look, it barely clears 100. It doesn't even clear 100 millimeters before it becomes to a point where every shell would bounce off the side of the turret at that extreme angle. But basically there is not a position you can put this tank dead on facing an opponent that would bounce a shell, unless they ricochet off there or they get really unlucky on this plate, but it is only 70 millimeters. If you're facing this thing, just shoot it in the face. Like, just shoot one right through the turret or right through here, because that's where one of the ammo racks is. From the side, 25.4 millimeters in the forward part of the hull, 19 in the back, 25.4 on the side of the turret, and you have this rear section which is also 25.4, 19 in the back of the hull, 12.7 on the upper part of the back of the hull, same thing on this side. It is not armored. This armor is most likely supposed to be useful against small arms fire, assault rifles, machine gun caliber ammunition. Things such as tank guns, this thing will not survive very long. It's a very fragile tank. I drove this thing out countless times where the first tank that saw me just put a round clean through my gun mantlet or bounced it off my gun mantlet into my crew compartment and killed everybody. It's a very fragile tank. You need to be careful. It's similar to the Chaffee in the respect that it doesn't have any armor, but the difference is the Chaffee doesn't see Tiger IIs, and Tiger IIs can knock this tank out with any round in its arsenal at, you know, a billion meters. So there were times when I got hit on the move from over a kilometer out. Now granted, it was a hell of a shot, but the fact is that the speed sometimes doesn't save you, and the armor certainly won't. The only time I've bounced shots is very extreme angles, and maybe they just nicked the back part of my tank and it didn't hit anything as it passed through. But the armor is paper. It's really kind of garbage. But there's a method to the madness. It's fast. It's supposed to be fast. It's not supposed to get hit by tanks. The issue is it's in a tank game where everyone's driving tanks or planes, and even planes will deal with this armor. So it's just not the best. But that does bring us to the gun, which I've said in the past that if you have a good gun, you can make everything else work. And that's true for the Bulldog. The two redeeming qualities is it has speed and a pretty good gun. It's a low caliber gun, 76.1 millimeters. But it's a good gun, right? So you get this M339 shot, which is okay. It's almost strictly entirely useful for flanking. 174 millimeters at 10 meters, 143 at 500, and 121 at 1500 meters. Okay, that's decent. 6.6 kilogram shell, 975 meters per second muzzle velocity. It's light, and it travels pretty quick. It doesn't have an explosive effect, has a frag effect, which is fine. But it's really only good for flanking. At close range, you can still penetrate the side of Tigers with this shell, but it's just not up to the task from the front, which is sometimes where you find yourself. HE shell, it's a 76 millimeter HE shell. There's really no redeeming quality to that, so I don't recommend using the HE shell at all. M319 shot. Now this is where we start getting into really the more useful part of this gun. It's an APCR shell, so the damage effect is a frag effect, 3.2 kilograms. It's about half this weight of the AP shell, which is pretty standard. 1262 meter per second muzzle velocity, that's really good. Means that engaging targets at range will be fairly straightforward. 224 millimeters of penetration at 10 meters, 188 at 500, 135 at 1500, and 113 at 2000 meters. I mean, you're in the same boat as you were here. You can penetrate the side of a Tiger at 2000 meters. You can do the same here. The difference is this travels really, really fast, has a similar damage effect, and at medium ranges out to about 500 meters, you can penetrate the front of the face of a Tiger II, the gun mantlet, not the gun mantlet, the face of the turret, which is really nice. Here, it's very difficult to do it at any ranges. You almost have to flank. This shell at least gives you the option to not have to flank. And then we come to the final ammunition choice, which is really what I use generally, just because the difference, I don't think, well, okay, part of the reason I use it is because it's a sabot round and it's a new interesting thing and I want to compare it to APCR shells, but generally I find that this shell just performs a little better. Let's compare it to the APCR shell, because that's really the two you're going to be using. This one is a 3.2 kilogram shell at 1262 meters per second muzzle velocity. This is a 3.7 kilogram shell at 1231 meters per second muzzle velocity. So it's slightly heavier and goes slightly slower. Okay, that's fine. The key thing that pushed it over the top for me was the armor penetration. It has more armor penetration, and it pushes that effective range you are against the front of Tigers or Tiger 2s out just a little bit farther. And that's what I want to see. I want the worst case scenario to be I'm engaging a Tiger 2 at medium range, and I want to be able to penetrate the front of his tank somehow. With this shell, I have a better chance of doing that. The APCR shell, it's a less likely chance of doing it. So that's why I chose it. Now, you could probably go with the APCR shell and achieve similar results. They are extremely similar shells. However, this just has a little bit more penetration, and that's kind of why I chose it, because when I go to APCR, having more penetration is not a bad thing. It does prevent the shell from fragmenting, but if you hit armor that's thick enough, it'll fragment anyway, and sometimes that extra penetration actually means something. Firing an APCR shell that doesn't penetrate the target is pretty bad. You know, it's pretty bad. And this shell gets everything done that the APCR shell did before, but it gives me that extra capability at close range. Let's say he's angled, I might still be able to penetrate his side armor, even when it's angled, things like that. And there have been situations where I've used APCR and the sabot shell in the same battle, and I just found the sabot shell to be a little more effective for me. But I encourage you to try both and decide which one you think is better. I personally go with the sabot round, but you know, you could choose the APCR, and maybe you choose the sabot round because it's just cool. You know, it's a sabot round, that's cool. But using the APCR shell is pretty good, and you get it fairly early on in researching. So you get it here, and then the sabot is next, and then you get artillery. So the APCR shell, the difference won't be much to get the sabot round. So I generally just use the sabot round almost exclusively, and the nice thing about it is that the muzzle velocity is really, really strong. The penetration is really, really good. And most of the time, if you can hit the target, you can penetrate, which is really nice. And that's really the key with this tank. You want to put yourself in a position where you can get out on the flank and then attack targets that are previously engaged. So Tigers that are being engaged from the front, they can't afford to turn their tank or turn their turret and focus on you. They have to deal with the IS-2s that are hammering them from the front, the SU whatever's 100s hammering them from the front, the I mean, you name it, the T-32s to their front, things like that. That's where the Bulldog shines. It's a team tank. It's not a loner tank like the T-32 kind of can be, or the IS-4, or you know, some of the Shermans. This tank really needs to operate with someone, and it can't be the center of attention. If you're the center of attention with this tank, you're just going to die. It just happens. There's just nowhere on this tank that they can't be penetrated. And the layout, you can see here, is very, very packed. It's a small tank. The front part of the hull, there's a fat ammo rack here. That's very easily penetrated. Inside the turret, very easily penetrated. You have 3 of your 4 crew members. If you lose all these guys, you basically get knocked out. Driver sits to the right of the gun. You have the loader to the right, gunner to the left, commander behind the gunner. You have the radio in the back, and then the back half of the tank behind the weakest armor is fuel tanks and transmission and engine. So this will cause a fire, this will kill the tank. That's basically how it is, and honestly, this will cause a fire and this will kill a tank. Will kill the tank. So if you have to shoot this thing, just literally shoot it in the face. If you want, you can shoot it to the right of the driver, or the left of the driver, left part of the hull. Fat ammo rack, you'll knock the tank right out. It's just a very compact tank, and there's just no armor to protect anything. Even if you put all the ammo behind the thickest part of the armor, which would be the gun mantlet, yeah, it's just not getting the job done. So in my opinion, this thing is paper mache. Which, I mean, I've said it in the past, if the tank isn't going to have enough armor to deal with the shells it's going to face, and it's just, I mean, it's like significantly worse than the penetration value it's going to face, then it might as well be paper mache, because you're just helping them at that point. So I guess it's okay that it has no armor, but I sometimes the speed doesn't mean you're going to live, if that makes any sense. This tank being really fast and having a good gun, and I do think the gun is good. It has a decent reloading rate, 7.6 seconds with a mediocre crew. 57 rounds of ammunition. I haven't run out of ammunition with it yet, primarily because a battle hasn't either lasted that long, or I haven't lived long enough to use all my ammunition. So, that being said, you can play this tank really sneakily. I've seen people do it where they survive the whole game, they get like, 6 kills, they get a bunch of kills, and they just dominate by being sort of obscure, by not being the center of attention. And that's something I struggle to not be going forward into the enemy and kind of fighting them very aggressively and pushing them to react to my moves. This tank is very much so, if you give it to me, I'm going to take it. Take what they give type thing. If they give you the right flank, rush down the right flank and hide for a little bit, maybe pop out, pop one or two of them, and support your teammates by delivering key fire support while keeping yourself safe. That's kind of what the goal is with this tank. It's a reconnaissance tank. It's not a brawling light tank. It's not a brawling medium. It's a light tank, and it's light. It has no armor. So, yeah. Overview of this tank. Its battle rating allows it to see very powerful machines, but it has the gun to deal with them. It is a low caliber, so you do have to be fairly accurate with the gun, but it can be done. Alright. It's light, it has a good engine, and it's really, really fast. Alright, so you can use this speed to adjust very quickly in a battle. However, it's light because it has no armor at all. If you get hit, you're likely to die. But the gun is really the redeeming quality. This gun can penetrate just every tank it'll see within reason, and can get the job done. So, yeah. Made of paper mache, decent gun, good speed. It's kind of what you need to know. Let's move on to the replay, shall we? So here we are on the realistic battle for the Walker Bulldog review. And this replay, I'm going to do my best to play the Bulldog the way I think it should be played. As I've discussed, this tank gets looked at and it explodes. You're going to have to come to terms with that. That if someone fires a shell and it lands in your general area, it's just going to wreck you. So you have to be kind of cautious. It's not like with some Russian mediums where you can just blitz a flank and really cause havoc. Those Russian mediums have a bouncier turret and have features that make them a little more survivable. The Bulldog doesn't really have that. So I've come up over here to basically try and use these ditches as kind of a little bunker that I can sit in. Now, it's not really going to work, but I am able to sneak some shots in at some enemies as they cross the open ground over there. But sitting over here is not a good spot. I'm playing into German guns' proficiencies. They're great long-range snipers. I don't want to be silhouetted on a ridgeline, at a somewhat known range because a lot of people sit there. So I've decided to drop down into this ditch and move along the flank and try and get some nice flanking shots into the sides and rears of the German tanks as they push towards the castle. And also, there's another Walker Bulldog that's also doing kind of the same thing. He's staying a little higher on the ridge. However, there's a Tiger 1 that's been spotted over here by some of our allies. And the Sable round, which is what I'm using exclusively here, is pretty effective for the front of a Tiger tank. Very effective. So, Now that he's somewhat hurt, I'm going to push up. Hopefully the allied tanks keep him sort of pinned there. But I'm going to push up. I'm putting Artie on where I think he is. And I'm going to push up and try and polish him off. Hopefully he's still paying attention to the allied positions so that I can get a good sneak attack. Because a Tiger is a problem for this tank if it gets a shot into you. Your first shot either needs to knock it out or disable it to the point where it can't continue shooting you. So my first shot, I went for the ammo rack. I didn't get it done, but someone else comes in and knocks him out, so that was good. But now there's a Tiger 2, which gets a healthy dose of the good news via his ammo rack. And that's what this tank is really meant for. It's a great long-range flanking tank, but it needs to be sneaky. It needs to have that element of surprise and sort of just come out of the woodwork to take advantage of openings generated by other tanks. This tank will not generate an opening of its own. You know, that's the job of mediums and heavies and things like that, to sort of pry open a spot for this tank to live in. But once you get into a situation where it's flanking, this tank's very effective. The Sabo round has good accuracy, good muzzle velocity. It's, you know, in terms of penetration, it's better than the APCR. In terms of weight, it's only slightly lighter. So and it has the same damage effect. So it's kind of a, for me, I just feel like I need to always have it loaded just because it's the most likely round to penetrate the target. And that's why in this battle mainly I was using only the Sabo round. The APCR just seems like sort of a poor man's Sabo round, if that makes any sense. It's not, it doesn't do anything that the Sabo round doesn't do. So why use it, you know? I'm already firing a low caliber shell, so there's kind of not a reason to worry about over penetration that much, because it's, I mean, chances are it's not going to do a hell of a lot of damage when it goes through. But, you know, having that extra penetration for that very tough target is not a bad thing. And with the Sabo at close ranges, it's conceivable that you can kill a Tiger 2 through its the shoulders of the upper plate and in the ammo rack. It's something I've found effective when I've been test driving the M103. I don't have it yet, but I've been test driving it, and it seems like an effective tactic to deal with them. But what's happening here is I'm going to push back down around over here because we had some enemies spotted over around that hill. And I want to help this IS-2 clean them up. Because I feel like a function of the Bulldog is to keep the flank secure and make it safe for the heavy tanks and the medium tanks to push forward and take advantage, well, more so do their work without the fear of being flanked. Which is something that's entirely possible with some German tanks, because they can stay at such ranges, and for example, Russian tanks are really going to struggle to out-snipe a German tank. But with the flank secure, I'm going to run back over here to my teammate in the Walker Bulldog and start overlooking their cap. It's kind of ideal because we are pushing them back fairly aggressively all the way back towards their spawn. And this is actually the first half of a replay I used on a video earlier in the week. It was a jumbo replay. That's actually the second half of this replay. And this is obviously the first half. There's going to be all kinds of targets that are going to get lit up over here. And we're just going to start shooting at them all. This is where this tank kind of excels, is the flanking role. I can use the rate of fire and just keep pounding enemy tanks and making their lives living hells until the team is able to take advantage of the confusion. Now there is a Tiger spotted to our, I can't remember, is it a Tiger or a Panther? I think it's a Tiger who's been spotted immediately to our left, and myself and the other Bulldog both adjust to deal with him. I decide I don't really want to pass in front of his gun, kind of do anyway, It's a Kugelblitz. Never mind, it's not a Tiger. Kugelblitz can penetrate, though. It can actually really mess up a Bulldog. But he gets knocked out by the other Bulldog. And now there's all these juicy targets ahead of us. And this is where I make a key mistake. I'm on the top of a ridge, and there's all these big, nasty, heavy tanks. That's going to be an issue. And I don't have quite enough gun depression to get the gun down on that Tiger 2. But by the time I do, I take a very healthy hit in the side. Or in the front, rather. And it just does me in. So let's move on to the next replay, shall we? So here we are in a simulator battle on Kuban in the M41 Walker Bulldog. Now this is another game where I'm consciously trying to play this tank as a light reconnaissance tank, light flanking reconnaissance tank. Because this tank was a real struggle for me to drive. It doesn't fit how I want to drive tanks. It has the speed to really get you in trouble if you're not careful. Because it has zero armor for this tier, and the gun doesn't really have that one-shot capability. If you can disable them on the first shot, you might be able to get the second shot off, but I found that that's not even a given. And if you take one hit in this thing, you're basically toast. The tank is small. If they hit you and the shell penetrates, it's going to hit a critical crew member. Just the way it is. But I'm pushing up along the northern part of this map. And I'm going to try and flank down and hit enemy tanks as they're crossing the valley. And then push forward onto one of the many sort of hills and snipe out targets that are engaging other enemy or other friendly tanks. Because the Bulldog definitely survives as long as its team does. It's very rare that I see a Bulldog, sort of 1v1 and win. And maybe that's just because I'm not a particularly great Bulldog driver. I'm sure there's people who are much, much better than me. But just as far as I can tell, this thing does die a lot, which is good. It gets 2 spawns, but it's good that it gets 2 spawns. But it's just, it really doesn't have some things I look for in a tank I really enjoy to play. But we get a nice assist on the Yak Panther. We were a thorn in his side, hitting his ammo rack, but no luck there. Checking the corner, make sure it's safe for me to move forward. And the enemy they've started to try and cap our zone. We've capped their zone in the south, which is cool. And now we're going to start recapping the zone that they started to cap. And I'm just looking around for targets because I know that there's got to be some enemy tanks around here. But it doesn't appear to be. Something that's annoying that you'll get used to with the Bulldog is that radio antenna that occasionally crosses the screen. That can be an issue when you've turned the turret and you're trying to spot targets, but I guess you have to learn to deal with it. I'm coming up over on this ridge, and there's going to be lots of targets down below me. And the key thing here is I don't want to show a lot of my tank, and I don't want them to feel like they need to attack me, like I'm the biggest threat in the world. I want them to feel like I'm a nuisance rather than a real problem. And the medium tank down below me, I believe it's a Panther, just hit my gunner. I mean, if you take a penetrating hit, a lot of times it kills a valuable crew member. But I get my gunner back, and it's a Tiger 2. I send the shell into his transmission, causes an engine fire, and he torches right there. And I took a hit there. I don't know how I didn't die. But now I'm trying to use the maneuverability of this thing and the engine power to get to safety. My rate of fire has been cut in half. And it's just not a good situation if I remain somewhere that these guys can see me and engage me. So I decided to drop off the ridge to limit the number of tanks that can actually shoot at me. And here's a Panther. Send the first shell in, I set him on fire, and I get his gunner. Now it's not a given that I'll be able to reload in time because my rate of fire has been cut in half, but he burns up anyway, which is nice. So very solid kill there. Now here's a Tiger, This is actually not a, this is a pretty good situation for the Bulldog. The Tiger was engaged to the front, and I was able to just mosey up, put my shot right through his ammo rack, and cause him some serious issues. And that's what you need to be thinking when you're using the Bulldog. Is it's opportunistic. Don't try and. I think with this tank, it's very difficult to try and make your own magic happen. If that makes any sense. It's not like a. It's not like a T-32 where you can go hold down and ward off the team and kind of hold a flank almost by yourself, or a IS-4 in the same position, or maybe a Tiger II, with just defending some position at range. This isn't the tank that's going to be able to do that, because they can and will hit you, and when they do, it's going to be really, really bad for you. So actually on that shot, I hit his horizontal drive, alright, which made me think, okay, if I move a little bit, it's going to be very difficult for him to reacquire me. Well, he was actually much better at that than I thought. I come over the side, and his first shell goes right through my tank and absolutely guts the crew. Yeah, there you go. Ripping pepperonis. It's just, the Bulldog can be a very frustrating tank to play. It's not the same as it is in World of Tanks, where a lot of people have a lot of fun driving it because it's so quick and agile. But the key difference is it has a health pool. Health pools mean a lot more to light tanks in World of Tanks, because in War Thunder, without a health pool, it's very easy to just get. It's very easy to get one-shotted already. If you have no armor, which is consistent for a light tank, you're going to get one shot regardless. It's not like they can have a low damage roll or whatever. No, if the shell penetrates, it's very likely to knock you out, simply because the layout of the tank is so confined that even a small, even an AP shell with very small explosive charge, or even an AP shell that doesn't have an explosive charge, is very likely to hit 2 or 3 crew members in one pass, which basically means you're up a creek without a paddle. More often than not, just the way this tank is that if you get hit and you receive any type of damage, you're unlikely to be able to survive the next hit, and the next hit's on its way fairly quickly after. If you lose your driver, you're toast. If you lose your gunner, you have a chance because maybe you can back up or something, but you're not in a good position, that's for sure. But we would win this game, and that's how I think this tank needs to be played. It needs to be played as a flanking machine that attacks as a predator of opportunity. You want to attack lumbering tanks that are engaged already, like those Tigers were, and you're not the biggest fish in the sea to them. You're, if anything, a small fry. So, yeah. With that, let's move on to the final opinion, shall we? Alright, so opinion time. What do I think of the Walker Bulldog? I think it's a very niche tank. It's a team tank. Alright, it's not going to do well on its own, and it can be very frustrating to drive. There are games where you drive it out, get hit once, and you just explode. And that's it. Realistic battle, you're done. Simulator battle, you got one more spawn, but yeah, it's frustrating. It's a very frustrating tank. The thing is, if you can play it right, it's extremely good at its job, which is to flank. But flank in such a way that you don't draw attention. Drawing attention is a really bad idea in this tank, because it has no armor, it's made of paper. The playstyle I recommend for it is hang back a little bit. Don't go blitzing forward to find the enemy. Hang back a little bit, stay with friendly tanks a little bit, and then watch the battle develop. Once the battle's developed and you see where the enemy are going and where your people are going, decide what route you should take to give you side shots at the enemy. At that point, you can be kind of bold. Maybe go to a bolder position that's slightly defended or not defended at all. That gives you a good vantage point. You kind of saw how on the simulator battle, what I did was I went to a position where I had a line of fire that was safe. right? The Yak Panther was engaged to his front. He couldn't turn and deal with me. And then, once the whole team, once we were pushing forward and once that area was clear, I moved up, got on the hill, and was able to secure some decent side shots into tanks. So I got lucky, but sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And kind of go on to have a decent game that way by taking what they're giving me. In the realistic battle, you saw a very similar thing, using terrain to hide myself as I swept around the flank with a couple other teammates, and we were able to catch a lot of big heavy tanks in very vulnerable positions to our position. So being very opportunistic, wolf packing, is very effective in this tank. An M41 Bulldog, Walker Bulldog platoon is a very tough thing to deal with, because if they have a good rate of fire and they're going to penetrate you every time, so it becomes a question of, can you kill them fast enough before they just disable you by nature of shooting you enough. And if you get a couple of these together, they can really cause some damage. But as it stands, if just playing it solo, personally, I don't like driving it. It's fast. I mean, it can be fun, but it just has no armor. It just gets blown up every time I take it out. So, I guess I don't really enjoy driving it. You might, though. And if your thing is light tanks and you just enjoy just blitzing around the battlefield causing issues, it's probably a tank for you. It's really fast and has a good enough gun to get the job done. And the gun, if anything, has plenty of penetration. It's actually kind of a good gun for the size of this tank and the speed and things like that. So, I don't recommend it, but you might enjoy it. But you need to kind of think of how you like to play games, maybe watch how you play, and determine if, the Bulldog is really what you want to be grinding for. Or maybe you should try and grind something else. You are going to have to get it eventually, I do believe, to unlock the next tier. I think you have to get it anyway. But, maybe think about, do I really want to have a 6.0 battle rating lineup with, this tank in it? Or would I rather maybe drop down to maybe 5.7 or 5.3 or something like that? 5.7 is a pretty solid battle rating. And maybe not use the Bulldog. But, I mean, if you really enjoy the tank, by all means, go ahead. So, that's my opinion. I personally don't like it. I don't think it's that good. But it does have a niche that is important, and if you play it right, it can really, really be effective. And there were games where I was able to use it effectively. However, there were also games where I got blasted in the first 2 minutes of the game. But that might have been just me playing the tank poorly, and I'm almost positive it was. So keep in mind those things. Keep in mind you need to keep yourself safe to really affect the outcome of the game. So anyway, that'll be it for this review. I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope this was helpful. I hope maybe it gave you some tips if you're maybe struggling with this tank. I hope this was able to maybe clear up a couple things, maybe give you a couple tactics or things like that you can use. If not, well, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you just enjoyed the video. It was very frustrating to drive this tank, so I hope I know some of you who keep asking for the Panther F. Well, God, I don't want to do that one. I'll have to eventually, but not yet. I think my next review will probably be the M103. I'm very close to getting it, so yeah, hopefully that happens. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or you disagree on some point, or whatever you want to do, go ahead and leave it in the comment section. I'd be more than happy to read and respond. I know it might seem like recently I haven't been responding as much in the comments section, and I'll talk about it in a different video as well, but I am reading every single comment. It's just, my schedule, I'm applying for internships and things like that. It just takes a lot of time out of my day, and I just really can't devote as much time as I want to reply to comments and things like that. But I am reading every comment. I am listening, and I am trying to reply as many times as I can, and hopefully me and Phil can do a better job of that. But anyway, thanks for watching. I've been CornySwiss, and I'll see you next time.